She was laid onto the table with blood loosely oozing from the part of her head that had been drained. Major Serenity Laws had never killed an enemy. They had always remained behind the battle lines carrying out administrative duties. This practice was especially noticeable during the Battle for Barbados, where the Commonwealth forces achieved a Pyrrhic victory over the British enemy. A soldier wore a device consisting of several thick, wired, tentacle-like strands placed over her heart. It pulsed with high voltage to restore her heartbeat. A high-tech breathing apparatus was then put over her mouth so that oxygen could be forced through her body, thus preparing her for transport from a frigate to the Armada's medical navy ship. While the helicopter was flying her body to the Royal Navy's medical ship, the device placed on her heart emitted a buzzing and vibrating sound before speaking via advanced artificial intelligence, heart rate increasing, condition stable. The helicopter then landed with a loud whirl on the helipad of the ship, where Prime Minister Jacob Smith was waiting together with members of the British High Command. What a pleasant sight it is, we have captured Major Serenity Laws. One does feel some pity regarding the state she is in, since she has been shot straight through the brain, sighed the Prime Minister, then adjusted his purple tie and blazer until they were perfectly in place as he looked at the corpse, which was Serenity, lying calmly on a stretcher with her eyes shut and having a light pattern of blood spread through her long auburn hair. It is most regrettable, Prime Minister, since she had to die if the experiment was to be carried out properly. If she had been alive, the noise from the drills and the fact that wires were being connected to both her heart and brain would have made it difficult. Jacob smiled devilishly, moved nearer to the cold steel of the stretcher, and with a gloved hand reached out to tilt Serenity's head a little as he examined the clean entry wound at her temple. The necro conduits are ready, Prime Minister. Since she is dead, she is freed from her mortal weaknesses and becomes suitable for eternal service to the state. And as for Commander Lupis, how is he getting on in the lab? Lupis is currently under heavy sedation and is waiting for the last bioengineered vaccine, which will change his DNA to that of a full lycanthrope. But what intentions do you have afterward? The ship's engineering skill could completely offer nothing in terms of the color of the waves, which were as blue as the Atlantic. Jacob Smith turned his back on Serenity and allowed the soldiers to take her away to the laboratory situated in the most secret sections of the ship, a place only accessible to members of the Special Counter-Bio-Terrorized Force. It was indeed a paradox, Jacob thought as he stared at the young major, who was in her 20s and had the skin color of cedar wood, lying on the small stretcher with her black boots dangling over the side. At the same time, her head was resting on the white material woven with silky threads, just as the spiritual dance of a crab spider. The darkness surrounded her like a plague as she lay on the bench at the bus stop in the middle of that luminous night, among the eerie tree frogs whistling from within the vegetation. A newspaper was lying lightly on her face, after which she opened her eyes and sat up. The shadows around her were menacing and whispered, the sound of drills added to the dread, while the darkness continued to advance like the thunderclouds above. Serenity asked, "Where am I?" as a shadow with red eyes came forward. It looked at her and then went back to where it had been. All at once she was overcome by a wave of tiredness and the world reverted to the cliffs at St. David's before going dark. Security protocol, established in the year 2032, a voice, synthetic and showing no emotion, resounded from all places and none of them. Lupis put her back in the coffee shop as another roll of thunderous, acidic clouds moved forward toward them like evil spirits. He checked her pulse and touched the cold skin of her wrist. The warmth he had anticipated was gone, replaced by an unnatural coldness that seemed to seep straight from the turbulent air outside, rushing in through the broken windows as the rain poured in. Yet they were protected from the rain lashing through the shattered glass. A big raindrop fell on a piece of glass still held in its frame and made a faint hissing sound. As the island became sedated, Lupis looked around the coffee shop and found Serenity lying on the floor with a pillow under her head. He searched and found a small room containing coffee beans in jars that had rotted from chemical toxins still floating in the air. These toxins had killed off the formerly luxurious vegetation in Bermuda. Though mold had appeared in light patches on the white ceiling, Lupis took in the foul air and found a large sack of coffee beans to cover Serenity and keep her warm from the creepy breeze that blew the rain into a slant. Lupis walked back and forth at a restless pace. During the night, the coffee shop was a dangerous place, since monstrous undead creatures were present and ready to shoot any living being on sight. As soon as Lupis heard the moans coming from a distance, he knew the warning because of his improved hearing. He looked outside through a broken window. Under the broken street lamp, several monstrous soldiers were hiding, moving irregularly. Lupis observed one of the undead, which had a bullet going through its helmet and was missing a section of its skull. Yet, the creatures continued to move about in the ruined night without ever recovering from the chemical attack that took place in 2032, 10 years before. As Lupis watched the undead, a bullet went through its skull. They saw him and began to walk forward, causing the rest to do the same. "For heaven's sake, it's time," Lupis said, taking hold of a section of the pole with the end resembling the broken tip of a syringe. He wouldn't retreat, particularly since another life was in his hands and one that he might be able to save. He dashed forward with alarming speed, like the speed of a wolf. With swiftness, he impaled one of the undead just as they lunged forward through the neck, and black blood splashed upon Lupis' cheek like a delicate onyx jewel. He continued fighting and swung the pole at another undead, cracking steel against the skull, which split open their head, and they fell as black brain matter leaked out and the pole vibrated heavily in his hands. They were tough and quicker than Lupis anticipated. Suddenly, a bullet tore through an undead's torso, followed by a second round. Species, lurker, kills 1, the system alerted as the lurker dropped to the asphalt road like broken time. She took a heavy breath as emotion took control of her and decided to fight the system, even though the HUD flashed crimson with a warning. "Warning, Security Protocol 1 breached, strengthening Security Protocol 2, the system said. Even though Lupis couldn't hear the system talking directly to Serenity, he figured she was struggling against some unknown being just as he was, seeing numbers in his vision and having white noise play in his mind like a record player to control his inner powers. Loud and proud, "I love it," Lupis said as he produced his own firearm, a short and bulky pistol with bullets that had both green and red tips. Bang! The gun fired, and at the same time a cloud of gun smoke appeared in the air, together with black blood which splattered in all directions. The bullet had passed through the lurker's steel camouflage helmet and hit another monstrous member of the undead who was wearing a bulletproof vest. Although the vest prevented the bullet from killing by stopping its piercing action, it set the lurker alight with a burning flame that caught hold of its torn uniform and long black hair. Serenity had no hesitation in joining Lupis in his effort to combat the undead forces whose numbers increased as the sound of gunshots resounded through the deserted alleyways which had previously been the scene of crime and prejudice. As she raised her battle rifle once more to carry out precise shots at her enemies, fragments of memories surged into her mind concerning what exactly had taken place between Lupis and the cliffs at St. David's. "Warning, warning, Security Protocol 1 has been breached." Her HUD went dark red before suddenly changing back to green, and the broken world around her then seemed surreal after the system had reacted. She pulled the trigger and kept her aim fixed on the heads of each lurker, pouring black blood onto the asphalt. It was time to put these soldiers out of their misery, and as Lupis kept on shooting, Serenity said with distinction, "Death is not the answer here, only life, Lupis. I remember you now, though you may not remember me, but you must realize that the battle is a long way from being over." Lupis, using his improved sense of hearing, heard her and then growled softly before saying in a determined rage, "I don't know you, and I have no intention of getting to know you." Their words felt worse than the hallucination of a gunshot to the brain. It wasn't quick, it was slow and menacing, grabbing at her metallic heart with an apparition of fear. She was starting to feel again, slow and steady like the rhythmic heartbeat of an undead that rose back up from the bullet to the head from Serenity. "That won't work, you need these types of bullets to kill them, or they will keep rising." Lupis roared at Serenity, while continuing to engulf the undead in flames from his incendiary rounds. And when the gun's magazine ran out, he switched to the acidic rounds with green tips that Serenity saw him loading from a distance, inside the broken-down building, before he vanished. Serenity's targeting algorithm kicked into overdrive, it operated like never before. And she thought it must be like a level up. Her HUD displayed another weak point, the liver. Without hesitation, she fired the battle rifle and hit a lurker, piercing the creature's weak point. They both watched as the undead spluttered Onyx blood out of their mouths, then collapsed to the ground like their fallen brethren, burning and releasing embers from engulfed flesh and clothing. Magnificent that these soldiers, who once fought for the Caribbean Commonwealth, still moved like humans trapped in a systematic cage, with no knowledge of the world before them. They moved without intelligence and lethargically, like the moans they released, full of suffering and terror, because of the flame that spread like leaping kindle amongst the undead. Lupis growled from the bloodlust around him, and his adrenaline surged through his body, causing him to howl and bring the swarm of the undead upon both him and Serenity. She backed away slightly as her HUD pinged all over with warning signs, warning, warning, multiple enemies of great strength approaching, warning. Warning. The system pinged with its cold artificial voice. She watched Lupis as long red claws grew from his hands, and his skin began to be covered by thick, red, silky fur that spread around his body. He grew as if reality itself had shifted into a nightmare, to 10 feet tall with a muscular, athletic build. Serenity's system went into overdrive, warning, warning. Massive threat ahead, species, werewolf, threat level, Onyx, name Lupis Jabado. Retreat. Retreat. Retreat.